Let's bring in the Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg. Secretary Buttigieg, thanks for joining us this morning. Let's play off what Jamie Dimon was just saying there. He says he sees storm clouds coming. Elon Musk is worried about the future of the economy. Larry Summers, former Democratic Treasury Secretary, is worried about a recession later this year as well. Is that what Americans should be braced for?
Well, right now, what we are doing is preparing for the road ahead, where you're not going to see this kind of swift, red-hot, wildly fast economic growth that we had over the last year or so, but still expecting strong economic growth and working to keep it that way. Now, look, whether we're talking about growth or whether we're talking about inflation, one very important principle right now that this administration takes seriously and respects is to allow the Fed to do its job. But the administration and Congress have a job to do as well, and that is to support growth in this economy, including issues on the supply side of our economy, like making sure our supply chains are stronger, making sure that we invest in the capacity, both physical and human, of our economy to keep up with demand, and taking action where we can to lower costs for American families. And there are a number of things that the president has proposed that we do that Congress could do. Lowering the cost of insulin, lowering the cost of childcare, lowering the cost of housing, things that would make a difference, no matter what's happening macroeconomically, would make life easier for Americans who are facing these economic question marks right now.
We just saw in Rebecca's piece President Biden saying he's doing everything he can. He believes he's doing everything he can on his own to combat inflation. But Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna disagrees. He's saying there's way more we can do. He wrote that in the New York Times, way more we can do right now to stop inflation, including having various departments, the Department of Energy buy up more petroleum, Department of Agriculture buy up more food, buy up surplus baby formula. Should the president set up the kind of task force that Congressman Khanna is talking about and start to make those purchases?
Well, look, the president's made clear that inflation is his top economic priority, and he's laid out a very clear strategy for doing that. I'm sure additional ideas will be welcomed, especially when they're ideas that come in good faith. But right now, the president has a very clear plan. Now, unfortunately, from the other side of the aisle, what we're seeing is not very much by way of concrete ideas, right? We've heard something from Senator Rick Scott about raising taxes on lower and middle income Americans. There's a continued push to reduce or to remove the ACA. And you have, continued culture wars. But, what we have in the administration and working with partners of our in Congress who are coming through with a number of good ideas is to continue to take the steps that are needed, both on the price side and on the growth side, to keep our economy strong.
Americans feel gas prices just about more than anything else. We're seeing $5 a gallon, approaching $5 a gallon across the country right now as we head into the summer vacation season. Earlier this year, the president tapped the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Hasn't made any difference at all. Was that a failure?
Well, look, I don't think it's correct to say it hasn't made any difference at all. This is an action that helped to stabilize global oil prices. The action the president took around ethanol, introducing additional flexibility there, that's having an effect on prices in the Midwest. But we also know that the price of gasoline is not set by a dial in the Oval Office. And when an oil company is deciding hour by hour how much to charge you for a gallon of gas, they're not calling the administration to ask what they should do. They're doing it based on their goal of maximizing their profits. It's been very striking right now to see these oil companies who have become almost ridiculously profitable. And you hear these oil executives on the record talking about how they're not going to increase production. Why would they? They're doing great right now. It's why the president has called for a use it or lose it policy, where if you're sitting on these thousands of permits like these oil executives have been, and you're not doing anything with them, then you're going to be held accountable for that. Now, so far, congressional Republicans have blocked action to do something like that, but we think that's another step that would make a difference among the many, many steps the president's already taken.
You're a veteran of the presidential campaign trail. What's your advice to Democrats who are facing the voters this year in the face of those high prices?
Well, look, the first is to recognize that this is a real challenge that we're all facing, that families are feeling that pain, and that we're acting on it. But look, the bottom line is that there are two very clear and very different approaches here. There is our approach, which is to find solutions to invest in our supply chains like we're doing with the infrastructure money certainly in my department and in others, to do everything that we can to lower costs for American families, like the cost of insulin and prescription drugs. And then there's the other path that congressional conservatives have put forward, which doesn't really speak much to inflation. It's raising taxes on lower and middle class families, making a lot of political hay out of the very real challenges that families are feeling, and going to war with Mickey Mouse. So there's a very clear difference in strategies here against some very challenging economic problems. And by the way, you can also look at the track record of where we've gotten over the course of the last year. Of course, we have challenges right now, but look at where this administration began, where there was a very real risk of recession, if not depression, and an American Rescue Plan that has made enormous differences in communities across the country. Pretty much any mayor I talk to talks about the different investments that they're making in their community thanks to that. And along with that, extraordinary job growth, exceptionally low unemployment, increases in income for American families. That didn't just happen on its own. And the fact that unemployment is as low as it is right now would not have happened, I believe, if it were not for the actions that the president took and the actions that Congress did move through and pass, like the rescue plan and what we're increasingly going to see the benefits of, this infrastructure law. A lot of people didn't think you could do anything on a bipartisan basis, but this president did it, and there are a lot of people in Congress who were part of that who have a lot to be proud of.
You are coming to us from South Bend. You're the former mayor of that town. Let me ask you a version of the question I just asked Chris Christie on our roundtable. In the wake of this epidemic of deadly gun violence, if you were still mayor of South Bend right now, what would you be doing?
Well, the worst part of the job of being mayor is talking to families of people who have lost their loved ones and knowing that nothing you can do will bring those loved ones back. We have a horrific scourge of gun violence in this country. And, as mayor, as every mayor is doing around the country, you take the steps that you can to reduce community violence, to invest in partnerships, to make sure that you've taken the steps you can locally. But you're also looking at Washington to say, will anything be different this time? Will we actually acknowledge the reasons why we are the only country, the only developed country, where this happens on a routine basis? And the idea that us being the only developed country where this happens routinely, especially in terms of the mass shootings, is somehow a result of the design of the doorways on our school buildings, is the definition of insanity, if not the definition of denial.
Pete Buttigieg, thanks for your time this morning.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.